The cult continues. The Gene Stealer cult, that is. We got a man and his Weber. He's gonna be a green tier cultist, as opposed to the autogun, shotgun boyos who have been all blue tier. But that's basically only going to come into play towards the end of the painting process. Broadly speaking, everything else is going to be the same. Not the most exciting, I know, but look, it's the process. You can't question the process. We're going to have our gray tones to start. Actually, we're going to get some primer going to start. And we'll start on in, as we usually do, haphazardly, just dousing the miniature in airbrush primer. It's a very sophisticated process, only for the most experienced hobbyists. You know, I probably should pull up some neophyte reference in order to help figure out how I want to treat this Weber. I know usually the emitters are depicted as a red, glowing, sort of sci-fi web emitter, but I think I might end up going green to kind of complement the green level of threat. We'll apply a good amount on his base as well, and then we'll save the rest of the palette for a second pass on the cultist himself. Omegon's twin, just saw your message now. My humblest apologies. You say you saw the picture, gave my thoughts. Yes, 100%. Your vote counts. That is good. Yeah, I have him here. I could put him on stream while we're waiting for that primer to dry. Yeah, so part of last night's stream was a bunch of paint experiments on that front leg, but it was starting to drift too close to something close to like ultramarines or maybe Emperor's spears, maybe. Just didn't feel quite right, but I think, and all I did here was use that AK Prussian blue mixed with some gray for the highlights, and then mixed in some Nuln oil, and I think it ended up bringing things back down, taking away a bit of that luster down a notch from the AK Prussian blue. I think it's pretty close to what you'd want from a Crimson Fist's armor color. Omegon's twin says that while the 40k got the command squad coming soon will be fun. Does the made to order stuff arrive readily? Or is there a long lead time on that? Because it is made to order, right? I actually don't think I've ordered anything made to order from GW before. Though my one buddy did order those trenches, and those took quite a bit of time, if I recall correctly. I think he was waiting almost like 8 months. Maybe it's not as big of a tax for a few sprues, right? Maybe the trench sprues are... Well, it's the same few sprues for the trench set, just more of them. So actually, I don't know. Flight of Icarus, welcome. Icarus says, I do think it can read as Crimson Fist, but I think the rest of the Marine does that better. Really? Really? Oh, throwing me for a loop, Icarus. God. What am I supposed to do? So you're down with the purple undertone. Maybe I should experiment with the mix I did. Because the wash, that is, over top of the base coat of Prussian blue and the edge highlight blend mix. Maybe if I mix less Nuln Oil to the overall wash, you'll get more of that luster showing through. I sense, Icarus, that's kind of what you're liking for what reads as Crimson Fist to you, right? Okay, what happens if we just take some Lamian Medium, so without Nuln Oil? What does Lamian Medium do to the armor? If we just, paint a panel, and we'll just let that chill for a bit. Let's get experimental, since we're here. Okay, this guy probably needs a few more minutes to cook. Still looks a bit moist. Omegon's twin says there are two main color schemes for Crimson Fists. One is more of a purple tint, and the other is sort of darker version of the Ultramarines color scheme. And Omegon's twin says it's supposed to arrive by like Friday, Saturday-ish. Okay then. I guess the trench terrain set my friend experienced was a bit of an anomaly. Okay, so Lamian Medium has begun to dry, and it might be the Lamian Medium that's sucking up the luster, the purple luster. Do you see where I applied it on his greave, on his back leg? That purple shine goes away once we cross over to Lamian Medium. Okay, so then let's do another experiment. What happens if we apply a Nuln Oil wash to one of these sections? I would have figured that Nuln Oil would sap the luster away. So, let's just paint Nuln Oil over his butt plate, and we'll see what that does. Icarus says, Crimson Fists are kinda leaning towards indigo-ish in some of the art. Though honestly, it feels like GW never keeps them consistent. Omegon's twin says, I've tried both color schemes. I ended up using Cantor Blue for the cause. Oh no, for the cause, Cantor Blue. Right. Icarus says, one would think the color GW named after the chapter would be the intended color. Yes. Yeah, usually that is the case. Interesting. So really, it's whatever, regardless of what you put over top of the Prussian blue, you lose that lustrous undertone. So this does feel to me more like the Crimson Fists as GW depicts them. But I don't hate the purple undertone. Maybe it's just a matter of committing to a recess shading. Right, just recess shade, keep the purple luster as the main color. And you can still do the chips and edge highlighting with gray and Prussian blue mixed. I don't think that's a big deal. Regin Leaf, welcome to the stream. Regin Leaf says, not to railroad the Crimson Fist debacle, but have I missed any of the Votann discussion? If not, carry on with said Crimson Fist debacle. No, I haven't looked at the the Votann rules or detachment yet. Usually I do those midstream as sort of a break from the hobby table. Except for, was it the Chaos Space Marines I did first? But yeah, usually on these streams, the trend has been to about 40 minutes or 50 minutes in. And nice to wet your whistle. Nice to wet the hobby whistle first. I'm not really sure what the talk on the street is of the Votann Detachment. I'm not exactly hungry, so to speak, for Votann Detachments, personally. They probably do need something, but the Votann range isn't much bigger than the World Eaters, so I don't really know how you skew and lean into different things. Like, you have your Berserk types, and you have your Tech Marine types. Well, you know what? You have two Pioneer units now, right? You have the Biker Pioneers and then the Kill Team Pioneers. So maybe you have like a Vanguard skew for Votann, right? That's at least there's two unit types there. Alright, 2 coats does the trick. Well, aside for the areas I miss. I chose the Weber next because I wanted to spread out the more boring weapon options, because there's more of those than there are special and heavy weapons in the neophyte kill team. Omegon's twin says, what the 40k, did you see the Cantor buff? I did, I believe so. Is it not just an ability with he gives Stern Guard battle line? No, Stern Guard Moro C. Is that the buff, or did he get a stat improvement as well? I probably looked at it on stream, but I may have forgotten the finer points of said buff. Icarus says, for my personal taste, I think the indigo leading color works better with the red fists. Omegon's twin largely agrees. And Icarus says, fair, I say that with blue and red Marines myself. Okay. Omegon's twin says, I have hope that Cantor won't go to Legends with the new rules buff. Gives me a bit of happiness. And Reginleaf says, currently at work, so happy to have something to listen to as I close the building. Well, Reginleaf, happy to keep you company. Happy to keep you company. Yes, the idea of preserving the indigo luster from the AK Prussian blue is... The desire is strong, I won't lie to you guys. I think that could have a very unique aesthetic on the tabletop, right? It's a pretty unique finish for an armor color, honestly. I don't hate it. And then you can break it up by doing some recess shading. I'm going to try a little bit of an experiment here with the leftover primer. I'm going to mix some airbrush for just some flow improver. And see if we can just turn this into like the leftover primer. You can see if we can use it for panel shading or recess shading. This Marine is going to be our test subject. Unfortunately, not every project's test model goes as smoothly as the Genestealer Cult's team did. That was like a one and done. I did it, felt pretty confident about the direction, and just committed. But for the Crimson Fists, I am less confident. And if I'm being honest, I feel like there's a bit more pressure because the Crimson Fists, they aren't my creation, the way the Genestealer, a custom Genestealer Cult kill team would be. These are... This is like a faction of renown. So if we just paint this like that. I still have some Prussian blue on the wet palette. It should be alive. One would hope. Omegon's twin says, there is no talk on the street. No one cares about Votann because they have so little lore. They're just guys who sell weapons and do dwarf things. Sad, but probably true. There is a Black Library novel. I think the newest Dawn of Fire novel has Votann. I have the novel on the to-read shelf, but it's going to be a minute before I get to that. I also don't know how well it's going to serve the Votann. It might just be Imperium. They might just be a heal for the Imperium in a very shallow way, which I hope isn't the case. Omegon's twin says, all Sternguard or OC2. Yeah, that's a sweet thematic buff for Pedro Cantor. I have a Pedro Cantor conversion in the pile of shame, and I think it looks pretty good for a Primaris scaled version of our boy Pedro, but I don't know if there's any immediate need to paint him or finish the conversion. It needs a little bit of green stuff work. I want to add some ropes. Pedro's got to have those ropes, you know, those ropes across his Aquila, his chest plate. Icarus says, though in my defense, mine are chaos and have a lot of gold trim, tying the blue and red together. The gold kind of reads as yellow, so it's more of a red, yellow, blue scheme. Oh, the Scourged. The Scourged. It's actually nice that there's that Icarus is representing a lesser, not a mainline legion, right? Typically, most people just flex chapters, but it feels a bit more common for successor loyalists to be represented on the tabletop than successor traitors, so to speak, or renegade warbands from the lore, right? Like maybe Red Corsairs. Maybe you get a bit of Red Corsair flexes, but I can't remember which book in 8th edition. Maybe it was the second Chaos Space Marine Codex. But they had that section of God-marked warbands that weren't... They were just renegade God-marked warbands. And the Scourged were among them. As were Red Corsairs and the Crimson Slaughter. Crimson Slaughter's pretty cool. Pretty cool. They should get more lore attention. They were box art bad guys, man. Like starter set bad guys. The Crimson Slaughter? They seem like they're a big deal. Hey, Tremari. Tremari asks, how's it going? I feel incredibly tired. Well, I am feeling a little similar, maybe not incredibly tired. I had an early start today. I had a call with Outer Circle and Northern Exile for our third podcast. Well, I guess it's like a podcast format, but it's just on our... They just turn into YouTube videos. So that'll be releasing at some point, I think some point soon on the Outer Circle's channel. So I am pretty tired as well. We're just gonna give that a... I guess this is a dual painting stream. We'll be bouncing forth between Crimson Fist Experimentation and that GSC. It's not false marketing at all. You know, what is a journey without unexpected turns, right? Tremari says, also in regards to your question now with the 40k, it depends on how much damage you want to have. Leaf says, are GSC speaking to you as an army, or are they just a natural extension of Gengar? They are a kill team, first and foremost. I am not planning to expand a whole collection of GSC. While I think they're neat, I just don't think it's practical for myself. I'm enjoying Kill Team quite a bit, and I'm looking to make some content around it, which, knock on wood, I should have something for the holidays on that front. But with regards to the GSC Kill Team, Tyranids don't have proper rules in Kill Team. So Genestealer Cult Kill Team is kind of a good way to get some Gengar flex if I'm making some Kill Team content. And it's nice to not have a elite Kill Team. You kind of want that variety, right? Like if, hypothetically, if I'm doing a bat rep with someone from my local gaming store for Kill Team, and they want to flex their badass Kasserkin or, you know, whatever army, right? It's nice to have some goobers. Nice to have a team of goobery cultists who are, you know, just out there with their autoguns and shotguns. Reginald says, I care about Votann, sad face. Yeah, I appreciate Votann grew on me. I think they just had really bad PR on launch because they were just so overtuned. But the idea of the engineer archetype of dwarf adapted for sci-fi is interesting. You know, I have a little bit of a bias because I enjoy the deep rock aesthetic, the deep rock galactic energy, but I do like the Votann's weapon aesthetics a lot. The armor aesthetic is okay. I think it'd be really cool, hear me out, to have a little kill team of Leagues of Votann painted like penguins. And you could call it like, well, what are their clans called? Their sub factions are organized into different clans, right? So you could like they all have weird sci-fi names. So you could work penguin in like a funny way, I think, into their sci-fi like their official designation. I think it'd be super cool. It's a black white scheme with yellow feet, or I guess orange feet, orange visors maybe. I think it'd be rad. Snow bases, of course. Snow bases, because they're got that penguin energy. They walk around in single file. Amazing. What's not to love? Alright, so our primer is dry. So let's begin. Let's begin with some London Grey. We're going to get our fabrics in place. The all-important cult fabrics. Well, you know this guy means business because he's actually got his sleeves rolled up. That's gonna be the meme every time he gets, every time he activates. This guy means business. I gotta also start painting these cult members looking in different directions because I've been painting them all looking left, and if I'm not careful, it's gonna look real weird. Why are all these guys looking left? I don't know. Am I overthinking it? Is that an issue? Is that awkward? I could just be overthinking it. Actually, we can be a bit haphazard here because we're going to paint those other elements after. That appears to be all of the fabric areas. Misfit, how's it going? Samuel Cooey, welcome to the stream. Samuel says left-handed army could be fun. They all look left and they're all left-handed. Some of them have big left hands, like claws and mutations, like this guy here. Right. Oh, I damaged one of his accessories, so I found this spare flask in the bits box, so that's his special juice. Definitely not for human consumption, I'd wager. Omegon's twin says the concept of Votann is cool, but the problem is they have no real weight on the setting. Chaos is always a threat, the Imperium is an industrial superpower, Tau is advancing super quickly, Eldar are dying out, but Eldar are in effect also against Chaos, right? But they fight against the Imperium sometimes. But, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but the Eldar haven't had like a major engagement against the Imperium since Vigilus, right? And even then it wasn't like a vengeful thing, it was a... If memory serves, I think it was like a miscommunication that devolved and was just old grudges were sort of like spun out of control, and they started fighting the... Because Vigilus was such a shit show, just everyone's fighting everybody, right? But I don't think... Like, in newer Black Library novels, in the Indominus Crusade, you know, Gilliman has in his council an Eldar emissary who's basically serving... It's basically Eldrad's emissary. So it's like they can't make the Eldar allies of the Imperium because it's so much history and baggage. And I think the galaxy is tumult enough that you can have it both ways anyways, right? You don't have to say, oh, they're all allies now. But to your point, Omegon's twin, yeah, the Votann aren't really impacting anything in a major way. They need to have a goal, right? What is, and I'm asking honestly, what is Votann's goal? Excuse me. Samuel Cooey says Votann just want to go back to the galactic core, but it's currently in hell. So they too are against chaos, in a sense. Right? With the option to fight against the Imperium. You kind of have an alliance of order forming. But it's like a soft alliance, right? It's like we have the same enemy at the moment kind of alliance. I hesitate to label it as an alliance in the same way it is framed in Age of Sigmar. But you know, people in the same alliance can fight each other. There is only war after all. Omegon's twin says Necrons have super advanced tech, but Votann are just trying to sell weapons, mine planets, and appease their ChatGPT supercomputers that have gained dementia. They aren't really a threat. Yeah, fair point. They're not an existential threat to the Imperium. I don't think the Tau are either. But they're interesting in that they have a goal. If the Votann are poised like the Eldar, super advanced, you know, technology, but they're kind of dying out because their AIs are failing. Then they have a ticking clock kind of characterization to them. They have limited resources on finite time. I guess. Yeah, because the Eldar don't have a very clear goal either. Well, you know what? It's just beating chaos, really. Surviving, being able to proliferate, and fight against chaos. Right, if I was a 40k game master, I would make the Eldar's goal in the short term to try and recover a fragment of Isha from Nurgle's garden. I think that is very compelling. Try to get some access to their pantheon back. gain more control of their, you know, the warp elements that would be powerful assets. Regent Leaf says Votann should be used for what they are, powerful mercenaries. If there were stories about weak Xenos empires surviving, they shouldn't because they paid the Votann to save them. That could stick. Yeah, a mercenary role could work. Mercenary role could work. I do think factions are more interesting if they have a cause, right? It's like they have a goal, something you can look forward to them accomplishing or striving to do at least, even if they fail. Okay, let's try and move on to the skin. It appears all my skin paints are expired. Flight of Icarus says, I'm honestly not sure what the Votann really bring to the setting. I'm happy people are into them. I just don't really see the appeal. I like their aesthetic, but I think they'd be much more compelling if they were striving against something. You know, like let's say there was... You pick one of your Chaos factions that you want to elevate and have a bit of kind of... Like, you want to give them a notch, right? A bit of validation. You can do something like, oh, if... Just imagine, hypothetically, if the sector of space of the Votann were seeking to reclaim, wherever their core is, was just wholly kind of under the control or thumb of the word bearers, let's say, right? Just pick a legion at random. It doesn't really have to be word bearers, right? It doesn't have to be a legion. It could be just a greater chaos warband, like Red Corsairs or something. And now it's just, or it's not just, but in doing that with a chaos subfaction or a chaos space marine subfaction, even, you kind of elevate them, and now wow, in that case, the word bearers are a real fucking big deal. Votann has a hated sort of foe, right? They probably hate all chaos because they're all bad dudes, but especially so with that one faction. And it kind of spreads out the Astartes versus Astartes into... I think the Primarchification, everything becoming so Primarch focused, and which Primarch is going to fight which Primarch next, I think it's all... For the most, it's fun, but I think for the most part, it's not ideal. I think you want to diffuse that and force them to interact with other greater entities and other factions in the setting. Or else we're just repeating the Horus Heresy. Right? You can still have a novel where so-and-so Primarch has to contend with another old brother, and those old grudges come out. But I think you want to tax these Primarchs coming back, like, oh, okay, the Lion comes back, but now he is wholly dedicated to dealing with the Silent King. Like that approach, I think, is better than just having it be, oh, the Lion comes back and fights Angron, right? And then never again. It's over. Reginleaf says their goal is to maintain the status quo, get resources, see new experiences, and bring back to the Votann upon death, and keep their people alive. They have no real overarching goal that can be summed up as survive, just the way they do so. Yeah, it seems to be the case. Look, for my preferences, I think it's way less compelling. Welcome to the stream, Francois. I think you want to poise your factions so there are interesting possibilities on the horizon, right? That are clear, right? Like you could make an argument. I don't think it's a good one, but you can make an argument that anything could happen to the Votann, so it's interesting. I just who knows what will happen? Who knows what they'll interact with next? But I feel like that's just writing the script for them, so to speak. Like maybe the Votann should be presented so that that's all clear. I mean, does every faction need to have grand overarching goals? I guess the Votann do. I mean, I'm saying that thought came to me because I'm painting Genestealer Cults at the moment, and I feel like Genestealer Cults is a faction of, on this episode of the Imperium, we deal with this minor threat and then it's dealt with. For the most part, I think the Genestealer Cults are not they're not as epic. They're not as demanding for a grand narrative, right? They believe what they believe, and they do bad stuff, and they add that flavor, that grimdark flavor to the setting. Not the chaos horror, but the alien horror. Reginleaf says, totally get why they don't appeal to you. I think they benefit from a more obvious goal than just, oh no, Grandpa Votann is coughing up scrap code. Yeah, I think that design choice, like you take it from the perspective of, like, you're coming up with a faction and you need to introduce them to the setting. It feels a little paint by numbers-ish in that every faction must have something pressing upon them, right? And I think there's a pressure for these factions that have the superior technology that, by extension, would kind of be better off. If they're not evil, I think they need to have. I use evil colloquially, like with Necrons. They're bad for humanity. The Votann aren't expressly bad for humanity, but they need to have a problem, right? An unsolvable problem to make it a bit more grim dark. And I think you also don't want to repeat themes of their factions wholesale either. Because you want to characterize them all uniquely, or else what's the point? We'll get our highlight color. We'll make this skin nice and pale. Oh, we are coming up on the 50-minute mark of the stream, so we will take a look at that attachment soon. Hopefully it's interesting. At the very least, I kind of prefer interesting detachments over overpowered ones. I support creativity in the rules. Right? Alien factions with detachment rules that feel alien because it's not a copy and paste of Imperium, things you see across various Imperial facets. It's a bit of like art, or it's a bit of like a meta commentary, right? I just imagine if, you know, across all the various facets of the Imperial Adepta, you had a similar kind of rules writing philosophy. You'd have similar detachments, similar stratagems, you know. No, in this detachment, you all get assault because you're firing on the move. And then imagine you go to something like Tyranids, and it's totally like radically different because, of course, Tyranids, the methods in which they wage war would be radically different to that of humanity. Right, and then you carry that design logic through. Chaos would have a rule design philosophy around, well, it would echo. It'd be like a twisted reflection of those Imperium rules sensibilities. I guess so would GSC to a degree. But yeah, the truly alien factions. Tyranids especially, Chaos Demons especially. They should have some shit that makes you take a double take if all you read is Imperial rules. I think that's way more interesting. Because like the Tyranids act like this? What? You know, imagine if if the conventional weapon universal special rules were not what was just blanketly copied and pasted across various Tyranid weapons, right? Instead of assault, you would have weapon tags like devour, right? Like stuff like that. Like that kind of design space. It just offers so much. It paints a much richer picture of like these various factions and how they're characterized. Right, and then it doesn't take too much. You just have a section in the front of the codex where it's like, oh, these are the common keywords that you don't see in any other faction, right? Common weapon USRs. And then all of a sudden your alien factions feel alien. Like, wow. Crazy. Because we're really gonna bump up the brightness on his scalp. We should add a little bit of variance though here and there. Maybe the wash will add variance. The washes usually tend to tie everything together, right? We'll get our dark color. Actually, the dark color might be alive. Does it live? Might be too thin. Misfit says, I'm looking forward to the GSC detachment tomorrow. Yeah, I did check the bottom of the article. I saw that GSC is tomorrow. That will be interesting. I don't know. Even though I'm painting GSC, I don't know if I'll be streaming tomorrow, guys, because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to do a bit of content creation before the holiday season. Just get one last proper bit of content out. And it may prevent me. We'll see. We'll see. Holiday season's busy, but it may prevent me from streaming tomorrow. Yeah, I think we want some darker skin towards the goggle strap, because you know those goggles are going to be pretty tight. They're going to make the skin darker. He's got a big ol' alien head. So those goggles will be definitely creating some redder skin tones. I find I can add, usually after the wash is applied, you just take some brighter skin tones and just put some stripes on their forehead, and that kind of serves the GSC ridged forehead look well enough. Just a few lines across the forehead. I kind of lose those details in how I paint. I mean, admittedly, they're fairly subtle because they're supposed to be under the skin, just beginning to emerge, right? You know, the other cool thing about this guy is that he's wearing his goggles, so you don't have to paint any eyes. Which is a big old win in my book. Oh shoot, I forgot he's got his rolled up sleeves here. Whoops. Trabari says, think I'm going to bounce. Good luck with your painting and hope you all have a happy holiday season. You take care, Trabari. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you, too, if I don't see you on any future streams. We'll just pick out his musculature. Look at that. Beautiful. Don't need to define it as well as the face, I don't think. And this guy's shredded. Look at his forearms. like tree trunks. This guy should be strength 4. This is crazy. Icarus says, the Tyranids are such a strange army to me. They feel like an odd fit, and the lore writers had to wrap in on themselves a bit to make it so they could take rifles, artillery, and grenades. Yeah. Yeah, the certain bioorganisms of the Tyranids, like some of the weapon beasts, I think look more natural than others, certainly, right? The ones who are looking like infantrymen with, like the Tyranid warriors holding their rifles, even Termagants holding their rifles. It's not the, like, it's grown on me, and I kind of like how it is now, but really, I don't think it would look like that, right? I think StarCraft kind of took the right approach in that regard, right? You have, it's like the Carnifex spine back is how ranged weapons really sort of would work, right? You'd have the Exocrine, I think, gets away with it. But I don't think you want your infantry squads of Termagants shooting guns like they're guardsmen. It feels less good, right? You'd have your Hormagants, of course, running around, cutting up stuff, munching on biomass wherever. And if you must have a ranged, lesser bioform, like a Termagant equivalent, I think it would be something like it would be like the Hydralisk in StarCraft. You probably just have some spine bank on your back or your chest, right? Like Raveners. I think that, for one, it feels more alien, so I think it is already a better approach, right, than holding your gun like a human. Right? You'd have mouth-based weapon points. I think that's certainly more alien as well. You could have thorax or back-mounted. I think that's how it should work, and your arms should be for your scything weapons, or they be used for firing platforms, right, to kind of steady yourself so you can kind of brace and fire your thorax, death spitter, or whatever. I think that's probably the right approach. I do like the idea that the Tyranid weapons are, symbiotic organisms. That is a cool approach, but they just look too much like guns most of the time. I think everyone would agree with that. Like, maybe they should look a bit more like a creature properly. I mean, it's evolved to be a gun, maybe. Maybe that's the spin. I don't know. It's not my favorite. Not my favorite choice. I have fun with it when I paint the Hive Fleet Gengar scheme. You have a different color scheme for the biomorphs are white, the Tyranids are black. You can color code your biomorphs so they have maybe different plates or carapaces or markings. All right, I'm going to put a wash on his skin, and then we're going to take a look at that Votann Detachment. I think the time has come. So, the skin color was purple Lamb medium and a bit of red, I believe. So which purple is the right one? It's this one. Reichland Flesh Shade. Now, for the more morphed GSC guys, we might go with a color scheme for the skin closer to High Fleet Gengar skin. But for these ones that are more human, I think this is the right way to go. This is probably more than I need, but that is the cost of not batch painting. Let's see how it sits. Yeah, it's about right. Just have this go and sit in the crevasses and do its thing. Cool. All right. Let's close the wet palette to preserve the moisture. And open up our PDF view. So we're looking at the Leagues of Votann Hearthband here. The Hearthband. So what is that? Oh, I'll check out Reginald Leaf says, at what the 40k, it just kind of occurred to me. Do the Imperium have an overarching goal outside of survival? I don't believe so, right? I think they're, well, it's... The grimdark setting is sort of supposed to be that they're so beset by so many threats that, you know, there is only war and the war machine grinds on. Their goal is survival. There are, like, the loose goal is to destroy all the threats, right? Like, certainly Gilliman's efforts in the Indomitus Crusade is to reclaim Imperium Nihilus, right? Because that's basically disconnected from the Imperium. I guess that's the broadest goal that we could apply to the Imperium, right? Their current effort is the Indomitus Crusade. And take back the galaxy. Reginald Leaf says, does that make them less interesting? Lol, not a real counter or anything, just a thought. I don't think it makes them less interesting. Like I kind of mentioned to earlier, I think the whole idea is that humanity finds itself in the 41st millennium in such dire straits. Like The worst possible outcome, right? Is the idea. Go out into the stars and it's just the worst. You just find the worst enemies that you could possibly encounter. Samuel Kui says the Emperor had the plan and he's stuck in the chair and not talking. This is true. And I think that plan was all because of knowing what was to come. Okay, anyways, Hearthband. The goal here. What is the thematic goal of this attachment? When the Eye of the Ancestors have been cast and the worth of some site or resource deemed vital, the kin may form a Hearthband to ensure its swift conquest, typically led by one or more of the kindred's most courageous and strategically cunning Khals. Such forces are painstakingly forged to complete the precise mission for which they are assembled. Einhir elites lead the charge, exosuit armored forms advancing like the ancestors come to life, contemptuous of the enemy's pitiful attempts to cut them down with gunfire or stagger their charge. So it's a threat priority maximum type of, a threat level midnight type of theme here. It's like a first company task force type theme. I'm sensing, we'll see. The detachment rule is methodical annihilation. Each time a Leagues of Votann model from your army makes an attack with a weapon, excluding blast weapons, that targets the closest eligible target, or target that is within engagement range of that model's unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. Oh, so you reroll a hit roll of 1 if you attack the closest or whatever you're fighting. And if your unit is a Khal, Einhir Hearthguard, or Uthar the Destined, improve the AP of that attack by 1. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous of these AP means by which to improve AP. So valuable. I do think Votann should be potent. I don't think that's uncharacteristic. I think they should not be as skilled when it comes to ranged attacks, but they should have the means to tech into, their grudges to kind of offset that poorer skill. But they should hit hard. The engineer, the classic engineer dwarf archetype, right? Rerolling hit rolls of 1 is also helpful because your detachment rule gives you pluses to hit and wound through grudges, so you can force yourself to 3s, to hit on 3s, reroll 1s. It's not a bad spot to be. I don't know if Votann has BS improvements on units or through various synergies maybe, but this isn't a bad place to start, right? Good efficiency boosters here. Okay, on to enhancements. We have Bastion Shield, 25 points for any Votann model. Each time a ranged attack targets the bearer's unit, the attacking model is within 12 inches of the bearer, worsen the armor penetration of that characteristic by 1. Okay, so it's really rewarding you for getting up close and personal. So kind of in the similar spirit to the Salamander's detachment here, right? I mean, Salamanders would get +1 strength if you're within 12 inches, and assault. But only in shooting. This feels much more... This will affect a wider array of weapons, simply, right? Rerolling all hits, shooting or melee, if it's attacking the closest. Okay, interesting. Well, we'll see how this fares. Quake multi-generator. Oh, an earthquake generator. That's pretty cool. 15 points, a Cal only. In your shooting phase, after the bear has shot, select one enemy unit, excluding Titanic units. Hit by one or more of those attacks until the start of your next turn. That enemy unit is suppressed. While it is suppressed, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Okay, so we're at our second enhancement. I think this might be the one you won't take if the other two are good. Iron Skein. Add 2 to the bearer's wounds characteristic. It's useful. It's useful. It's not like the most alluring. It's very simple. But you know, anyone who plays 40k will know. It's more than possible to be alive with 1 wound remaining. Having more wounds helps. They'll force people to divert. Oh, this character now has extra wounds. I might have to divert more assets that way. Less to go at other things. It's not bad. And it's pretty cheap. You need to fill up 10 points. And you have High Cowl. Only for Culls. Each time a model in the bearer's unit is destroyed by a melee attack, if it has not fought that is, roll 1d6. On a 4+, do not remove it. It's fight on death. On a 4+. 30 points. Variable. Yeah, you should roll for it. You're not paying 2 CP like Space Marines. And they're not, I don't think the Votann biology is as superior as an Astartes, I should say. So that seems reasonable. You have to roll for it. I don't have the same gripe I have with the Chaos Space Marines Index in that regard. Yeah, so we have a theme here that's basic, like First Company Task Force, but all about being up close. Because you have quite a few things that are working for, you know, being in engagement range, worsening enemy AP if they're nearby, and then all of your detachment rule just affects any Leagues of Votann unit. Reroll hit rolls of 1 if they are shooting the closest or fighting in melee. And then you get bonus things for Cals, the Hearth card, which are your Terminators, and Uthar, the named hero. Uthar. Let's see here. Reginleaf says, I think you're right about the skill versus power. Ah, I see you too are a man of culture. Reginleaf says it's worth not noting the Quake generator will affect the enemy in melee as well, so if you charge them, as this detachment demands, you'll be safer. Excellent point. Excellent point on the Quake generator. Yeah, you can do a little shot, subtract 1 from the hit roll, and charge in. Yeah, until the start of your next turn. While it is suppressed. I can't recall if the Space Marines suppression mechanics on 2 units, I think, have it. Suppressors and the Astraeus. Those units have a suppression type ability set off by shooting in the shooting phase as well. But I don't know if it's only for their ranged attacks or all. But that is very much in line with what the detachment wants. You are correct, Reginleaf. Okay, on to stratagems. We have Breckenauts. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Breckenauts. 1 CP, opponent's shooting phase, or the fight phase. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. Oh, they didn't do the template here, the little icon to signify that. Literally unplayable, guys. You choose 1 Cal, Uthar, or Einhir Hearth Guardian from your army that was selected as the target of an attack, and you have a 4-up invulnerable save. Okay, that's good. Strong. So you can give your Terminators the Terminator level invulnerable save for a CP. Yeah, invulnerable saves are annoyingly good. Sure of Purpose, 1 CP in the fight phase. Used when one of your Votann units have not been selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit piles in or consolidates, it can move 6 inches instead of 3. This is great. This, in the hands of a savvy combatant, can be used to get where you otherwise would not think you could access. You know, providing you charge reasonably well, you could find units piling in and attacking things they really shouldn't be able to. It's like, shit, you're piling in how far? Superior craftsmanship in the fight phase. 1 links a Votann unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets a vehicle or monster, add 1 to the damage characteristic. Beautiful. It is fight phase. It is 2 CP for +1 damage. Which I guess is fair. Often you have -1 damage strats being 2 CP as well. Yeah, that isn't terrible. If any Leagues of Votann army at +1 damage. I mean, if you're in melee with Einhir Hearthguard, I'm not sure what their damage profiles are naturally, but I imagine you'd have a 2 damage option like a Power Fist. Or a Power Fist equivalent, right? A less wieldy, but hits harder type weapon. But then you're rerolling 1s because of the detachment. You have +1 AP, +1 damage because of this. That could be big. Okay, movement phase stratagem. We have 2 movement phase stratagems. Unyielding aggression in your movement phase just after a Leagues of Votann infantry unit falls back. You can shoot and declare a charge and turn which it fell back. Wow, look at this reactability from the dwarves. Didn't expect that. Did not. Shoot and declare. That's like Eldar levels of reactability. Crazy. That's crazy to me. I think Or would be more appropriate for dwarves, personally, for the dwarven archetype. And then maybe if you're iron here, or whatever those keywords are at the front, if you're any of these, maybe you can do both. That's super versatile. Materialization matrices. Is this uppy downy? Is this when in the reinforcement step of your movement phase, 1 Leagues of Votann unit from your army that has... Oh, it's 6-inch. 6-inch setup, you can't declare a charge. So 6-inch deep strike, you can't charge. We've seen this before. At this point, it might as well be a universal rule with just the keyword changed for each faction. Like, it's... All of this is always the same. Fury of the Hearth, the last stratagem here in your shooting phase. For the Hearthguard, your Terminators, your small Terminators. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons, excluding blast, have rapid fire 1. So if you're close up, you get an extra shot. And their weapons have a mortal wound or dev wound potential if memory serves. So that could be big money value. It really could be. Depending on what other synergies you have going on. Very... Well, you know, it's not the most exciting, but... I honestly don't know what else you do. Like, I thought of a Vanguard. Not... a Pioneer, I guess, is what they would call them, right? Like a Pioneer-based detachment, but... You only have those bikes, and then the guys with the trench coats. Can you make a detachment all around them? I guess you should. I guess you ought to. Right? You ought to serve the themes. Even if the models don't exist, you could accommodate for them with rules, right? Kind of like you have with that Eldar detachment. You have a Bone Singer enhancement, even though Bone Singers aren't a model you can buy from GW anymore. So you can accommodate, like, interesting different playstyles just with enhancements, you know. Yeah, this is fine, I guess. I don't know. I'm not particularly excited by it. Reginleaf says, I think you'll be choosy with the damage strat. Berserks will love it, though. Iron here, get Power Fists for this strat, too. Right. That's sort of what I was thinking. Reginleaf says, Rapid Fire is better on the Iron here. Plasma guns doubles their output. Real scary. Oh, their plasma guns just one shot? Or, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, are they plasma or are they like a Volkite? I can't remember. I remember they look sci-fi, but it could be the same weapon I'm thinking of, or I thought it was Volkite, it's actually plasma. Who knows? Who knows? But it is interesting. There's some stuff, like, I guess if you were into the small Terminators and you built an elite Hearthguard force, or Hearthband force, as they say, this detachment is something. It's something. I feel like I should have made our weapons are the best weapons, and then play with different affects. Again, leaning into the more alien quality. Right? The Dwarven Engineer theme that they build wild shit. I think there's design space there. Anyways, let's get back to the painting. So our wash has dried up, and it looks how you would expect. I'm going to water down this skin blend a little bit and see if we can brighten up his head top a little bit. I'm going to try and paint in those, whoops, there we go. Try and paint in these, you know, those ridges you'd have. Now we can get our brighter value and just pick these out. You know, the fact that these guys are mutants kind of gives a bit of leeway. You don't have to have beautiful skin. You can kind of have a lot of imperfections and harsh transitions, and it kind of works for them, honestly. You know, in the new year, I will return to painting the Eldar Aspect Warriors, which will include quite a few faceless, or helmless, I should say, warriors. And those Eldar faces demand a certain level of beauty, I think. I mean, you could paint your Eldar like ghouls as well. That is a way you could go. But I certainly appreciate the opportunity to present the opportunity to paint a pretty model. Don't get a lot of that when painting a chapter of Space Marines. I'm going to use this bright value, that the peak flesh color for his teeth, actually. I think it will suffice. Just kind of get it in there a little bit. Keep it away from the edges, if possible. If it gets too overblown, I think I can put a wash in there and it'll probably help with the readability. Or maybe I can water down this color a little bit. Let's see what that does. That's a bit too much. Okay, so that was a terrible plan. Nothing happened. It did nothing. Robert Saxon Nash. Welcome to the stream. Just saw your message now. I swear I do not mean to ignore chat. Look, sometimes I get too dialed in, too focused. Robert Saxon says, first of all, evening. I think Votann is a difficult one until they hopefully get a second wave of minis. I agree, Robert. Their range is very small. Pun intended, I guess. Not all that vast. They need a wider range to have a more varied amount of play styles. Especially with how you've, well, not how you, but with how they, GW, have gone away from associating these detachments with factions explicitly, right? Like, they subtly do it with Space Marines. And by subtle, I mean, like, you might have a Flesh is Weak stratagem in a detachment with the word Iron in there, right? And that's like, oh, obviously Iron Hands. Might have some Iron Hands artwork, but it's not specifically Iron Hands only or associated to them exclusively. Because when Votann came out, you had the normal amount of sub-faction rules, right? For all your different clans, your Votann clans, or whatever they're called. So there was no shortage of themes, but without expressly being able to say that, oh, this is the Trans-Urani Surtur Regulates, or whatever they're called. This is their theme. They have tough stuff. Without being able to just apply a faction association, I think it becomes harder to make these attachments. Because now they have to have like varied mechanics. And Votann's range doesn't have, you know... It's not like you have two different varieties of biker and a support bike and then a biker leader. And then you have your biker type detachment, the way you can for even something like White Scars. But maybe I'm thinking too narrowly, because if you are a rules designer, you have to kind of work within those confines, right? If there's a Votann that was like White Scars, but Votann, you know, all about mobile, quick, swift warfare, you have to work with what you got. You try and make those bikes shine. You make those buggies do some heavy lifting. And I think you try and flex like a bit of mobilized infantry. Because you got to compensate with the units you have, even if you don't have like all the biker units you would like, or if you know, maybe they're in the pipeline, in the GW pipeline. These are my deep thoughts. I got some corn red on the palette here. I think it's fairly alive. We'll try and put it in his goggles. It's actually a good amount of paint to start the blend, because you want that dark red for that smooth gradient. Then we can get a bit more and do the main color. Just blend it more towards this side. And get a little bit of pure red and just shove it in the corner. Or I probably should spread that out a little bit. Let's go back to corn red and see if we can sweep. Whoops. Okay. feel like this is worse. Worse lighting. That should do for the goggle lenses. So we'll go on to the armored pads. And what I found works very well is just contrast for this, the padded, ribbed kind of section of his industrial work suit. His workers' clothes. It's not glamorous life being a G-Stu occultist. Probably have to work super hard most of the time. But I found using the Black Legion contrast just over a Gray Seer base coat does a pretty quick and simple job with this kind of a textured padding. Robert Saxon says all bikes auto advance 6 or all vehicles -1 damage. Something than what they got kind of thing. Yeah, there's so many different ways you could do like a mobilized Votann clan. I don't think they're called clans actually. I keep referring to them as clans. I think they had a different term for their sub-factions. But you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys get it. They had, in 9th edition, a whole bunch of different Votann subfactions, each with their own gimmick as per the template, right? And I on that issue, I land on the side of I prefer that paradigm. I think at least you were making some attempt to create sub-faction significance for armies that were not Space Marines. Whereas now, it doesn't matter. You don't have that level of resolution. Right? They might be less popular, but the sub-factions were there. They were labeled in the codexes. You knew there were a few other key star Forge worlds if you were to start an AdMech army. And which one lines up with the themes you like? Which one would you like to represent? Or, flex, maybe. If you read a particular book and you want to make your own Forge world, or you want to be Lucius adjacent because you like their solar shielding, or I can't remember if that's even what their thing was. One of the Forge worlds was all about solar shielding. Like, that sounds pretty cool to me. Kind of like an inverse of Mephrit, right? Their Solar Fury. And there's I think, an intentional foiling between AdMech and Necrons, which GW likes to lean into. Do I paint this black, these sleeve holes, or what? Yeah, I guess so. Regent Leaf says league. They're called leagues, lol. Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, Regent Leaf, I feel kind of silly for not remembering that. Duh. The Leagues of Votann, right? My excuse is I had very little sleep today. That will be my shield. I'll make a community post when that collaborative podcast comes out on Outer Circle's channel, so you guys can hopefully not miss it. Robert Saxon says, yeah, I'm stuck with the Undying Legion with my Necrons instead of the Silent King's own Dynasty Detachment. It feels the closest to it for me. Yeah, I think probably. It's probably right. Probably. There is a detachment for the royal guys. I forgot what the keyword is for them. But I believe the Silent King lacks that keyword, awkwardly. Rather awkward that the Silent King does not have that keyword, unless it was fixed. This is something I was told, so it could be fake news. Try and get a decent white build up that hopefully the contrast will... My black contrast I find is super potent. So I'm hoping by bumping up these values I'll be able to get more readability out of it. You could dilute it, but... I don't know, I find... It might be easier said than done. It goes on pretty thick, the contrast paint, so I don't... Like, is it... Will it result in losing detail if you layer diluted contrast repeatedly to compensate and gradually build up that level of, that sweet spot? I am not sure. Okay, so you can't really see his torso. You can't see his tummy, so we won't have to paint that. Reginleaf says they made shooty Necrons so fun. With this new detachment, Reginleaf, the new Necrons detachment, just... I can't recall the mechanics at the moment, but I remember when it came to reviewing theirs, it was like, wow, this feels very powerful. This feels potent. Robert Saxon says, yeah, I'm stuck with the... okay, I read that already. Reginleaf says, glad Mefford got some rep in the Grotness attachment. I used to really like playing them in 9th. Yeah, look, the Necron dynasties, I think, actually could, like, just with a little bit of love and attention, for lack of a better word, right? I think you could easily elevate the different dynasties to chapter status, right? Because they have such, like, defined quirks, and, like, after the Necrons, rather, were kind of retconned to have personalities more commonly. There's room, right? There's room to kind of have characters. Yeah, certainly in novels and side stories and codexes, right? They just have such obvious themes. Same with the Tyranid High Fleets. Same with the Orcs. The reality is most of the sub-factions, as they were in... The last codex was 9th, that we had them, right? As they were defined and kind of highlighted in 9th edition, like, they have a similar level of character that's analogous to the Space Marines in terms of sub-faction tactical deviation, right? On the sub-faction level, that is. Like, it's just a lore focus. You know, Space Marines are so overly, disproportionately focused compared to everything else. It's like, it's just the nature of the beast at this point. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? But I think, like, Mefrit's so cool. Like, you have these different Necrons, dynasties with different colored alloys, sometimes with different colored Goths, which is a super cool flex. Look, people like lightsabers. They like glowing stuff. People like glowing colored stuff. And, you know, if everyone has green lightsabers, you look at Mefrit and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Alright? You look at, I think, Thocht. I think they had blue. But they were kind of... They didn't really have a sub-faction rule, I don't think. What I'm trying to say is Necrons are cool. Necrons are cool. Mefrit is extra cool. Well, let me see here. Okay. What time are we at? Okay, so we'll probably wrap up within the next 15 minutes or so, guys. Like I said, I didn't have a ton of sleep. A little short on rest because of that podcast I recorded. But actually not but, and I will have likely not stream tomorrow because I would like to get some content out for the holidays, for the holiday season. You know, I wonder if I should be using this same recipe, Grey Seer with Black Legion Contrast, for the boots and the gloves. Probably, eh? Probably. Would certainly speed those things along. You know, and then after you give it a little subtle dry brush, you're pretty much sitting pretty. We can clean up any overspill in the gray pants pretty easily anyways. It's not the biggest deal. You gotta hit the jock strap here. Hit the crotch protector. That's important. That's where he keeps his gene seed, if you know what I'm saying. The family jewels. Going kind of heavy with the contrast. We'll see if that's a good strategy or if I'll live to regret it. I'll have to clean it up. We'll see. Yeah, it seems like you do have the luxury to just glob it on and then move it around. Yeah, those are all the padded sections. So it is a little heavy, so we'll have to absorb some of that back out. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, did I ruin it? Well, look, it's an industrial, rugged bit of equipment, right? It's going to get some wear and tear. That's okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. For good measure, we'll just put some contrast on his tummy. On his abdomen. Margaret Woods, welcome to the stream. Again, I was just heads down, not ignoring anybody. Margaret Woods says, hey, 40K, great job, by the way, with your latest show/vids with the Outer Circle and Northern Exile. Nice use of emojis. Really, really great stuff. Ironically, you three are my top gaggle of go-to creators. Oh, funny coincidence. Funny coincidence that is. Yeah, I just recorded another one today, actually. So that one will be on Outer Circle's channel. Outer Circle actually put a playlist together. So that'll be like the aggregate playlist on his channel. Which is... it's probably the most convenient way to kind of aggregate them, because then it'll still bounce you to whoever's channel is hosting them. It's pretty cool. Robert Saxon says, I'm not going to bitch too much on Marines, as I'm starting a Blood Angel force for my second army in the new year. But yeah, they do get special treatment. They do. I can appreciate almost every faction, even the ones that get really, like, burnt out on their memes, like the Space Wolves, right? I think there's, even in the Space Wolves case, they get a lot of hate. Maybe, I don't know, it's probably a variety of reasons as to why they get so much awkward lore choices and hate. But I think ultimately, like with most chapters, there's a cool, just a superficial, like just a cool factor to them, right? Like the Viking archetype of a super soldier. Like that's a cool idea, right? A little bit of Viking culture, a little bit more of a savage kind of raider type of Astartes. Like there's an appeal there. So for most, even all, I guess every faction has a bend or an angle. Certainly every army does, right? Where it gets a bit annoying is just when like rules get when there's a rules disparity is where it gets annoying. I think lore disparity is fine. You can't. I mean, you could favor everyone equally, but I don't think it's necessary, right? I think it's perfectly fine to have lore, not focus on the Iron Hands as much as the Ultramarines, let's say. I can live with that, but if the rules are such where it's like one's favored so disproportionately over the other, then I think you begin to encroach on the adage I often find myself coming back to, like the rules punishing hobby efforts, which is not a place we want to be. Reginleaf asks, did the Sanguinary Guard win you over? Reginleaf, how rude. No! I very much dislike New Sanguinary Guard. I was pretty cold on most of the Blood Angels releases, honestly. That just came out. Most of it was not too exciting to me. Robert says, yeah, I know. Wow, laugh out loud. I don't hate them, though, but I also get the hate. Reginald says, same. Actually, I like the little wing finials, but damn, do they not live up to the goal? Those old, glorious eagle wings. How true. How true. The most iconic feature. I also think you can make a case that the silhouette and overall... There's various design points, or, there's various... lenses of it, or I guess various design aspects would be the term, that you could evaluate the new Sanguinary Guard and the old Sanguinary Guard on. And I think, I don't know if it'd make a good video or not, which is why I didn't do it. But I think for them and for Lamardi's, you can make an objective case that the new designs are worse. I think you could. But I wasn't confident it would be worth the effort to do like a dry analysis of aesthetics. Or maybe it would. I don't know. Maybe that was just a missed opportunity. I know when I made my community post about new Lamardi's, it was pretty mixed. A lot of people liked new Lamardi's, but I felt they wanted to like new Lamardi's, if you know what I'm saying. They want Lamardi's to be cooler, man. This isn't your dad's Lamardi's. This is the new Lamardi's. He's angry. He's shouting right at you. Anyways, Margaret Wood says, good, yeah, I saw the playlist. I strongly recommend viewers check out these deep dive discussions on the finer points of 30k, 40k lore. Wow, well, I appreciate that, Margaret. Certainly. Yeah, we're enjoying them. We are developing a kind of camaraderie, I suppose, slowly but surely, getting more comfortable, more personable. I think it'll shape out into something pretty cool. Robert Saxon says, too much wolf better in heresy. Reginald says, not enough wolf better in 50k. Oh god, the de-evolution. Could you imagine? It will be the meme. The meme of the the Age of Darkness shoulder pad. Space Wolves head shoulder pad, but everywhere meme. Reginald says, I mean, they just aren't really capturing Sanguinary Guard spirit if they don't have eagle wings. Surely everyone agrees. Even if you like their new designs, they just aren't the same thing. Oh, 100%. That's the most iconic attribute of the Sanguinary Guard. The Golden Host, right? They are the the most emblematic of the angels of death kind of like made manifest in that sense, right? They're golden, they got wings, they got angels in the chapter name. They're saying their Primarch was the most angel of all angelic beings, right? Yeah, feels like it's a bold choice not to carry over the wings. Yeah, I wouldn't approve of that, I don't think. It does make Sanguinor stand out more, because he's now the only one with wings. But I kind of hate Sanguinor, so that may be coloring my lens a little bit. I better put wings on them. I agree. Put better wings on them. GW miss completely sometimes. True. They do hit sometimes too. Like I don't want to only hate. They do hit the mark pretty well sometimes with some designs and reimaginings. But anyways, guys, we are about wrapped up here. Actually, not a ton of painting. Though some time was split between the Crimson Fist experiment, right? And we did get a little chattier. A little chattier than usual. That's probably better for stream enjoyment, right? And we'll keep experimenting on this Crimson Fist guy. To keep the luster or to not keep the luster? That is the question. Hard to say. Hard to say. Reginald says, anyway, I'm off to bed. Thanks for reading my comments. Loved it. Oh, thanks for the company and tuning in, Reginald. Anyways, guys, if you made it to the end of the stream, you are the real hobby heroes. Thanks to everyone who chatted, kept me company, and shared in the hobby camaraderie. And I guess